Hi, welcome to this week's Midweek Connection. My name is Todd Jordan. I serve as senior pastor here at Strawbridge United Methodist Church. I'm delighted that you've joined me. On September 18th, you may be aware, our church is having a vote, a church-wide vote at a called church conference. It is not a vote regarding disaffiliation or our membership with the United Methodist Church. It is rather a vote on a position statement. The degree to which we are going to be openly affirming to the LGBTQ community and what that means in terms of a welcome statement for us. So as we prepare for that church-wide vote, and just as a reminder, you must be a full member to vote. And if you want to join our church to be eligible for the vote, you must do so by this Sunday, September 11th. So as we prepare for the vote, I thought I would share with you Acts chapter 15, and you'll find that full chapter as a link to this video. But there's two things that happen in Acts 15 that are worthy of our reflection as we prepare for the vote. The first part of Acts 15 has to do with a conversation that happened between Paul and the apostles. There was a difference in their perspective of what to do with Gentile Christians. Some felt like, from the Jewish background, some felt like Gentile Christians or Christians that had converted from a non-Jewish tradition, some pagan tradition, had to convert to Judaism first. Men would have to be circumcised. They would have to keep to the laws, etc. Paul, however, felt like that Christ had already done the important work and that Christian Gentiles could just automatically be a part of it through what Christ has done. So there was a disagreement they had to come to terms with. And so certain individuals, Acts 15, 1 and 2 say, came down from Judea and were teaching the Christians, unless you are circumcised according to the custom of Moses, you can't be saved. And after Paul and Barnabas had no small dissension and debate with them, Paul and Barnabas and some of the others were appointed to go up to Jerusalem to discuss this question with the apostles and the elders. So there was disagreement, there was debate, there was argument over what to do with these Gentile Christians. So in 6 and 7, Acts 15 tells us that the apostles and the elders met together to consider this matter. After there had been much debate, Peter stood up to speak. And this is what Peter basically makes the case that they don't have to convert to Judaism in order to be Christian. So after Peter argues, Acts 15, scripture says, the whole assembly kept silence and then listened to Barnabas and Paul as they told of all the signs and wonders that God had done through them among the Gentiles. After they finished speaking, James got up to reply, and he said, therefore, I've reached the decision that we should not trouble those Gentiles who are turning to God, but we should write to them to abstain only from things polluted by idols and from fornication and from whatever has been strangled and from blood. Then the apostles and the elders, with the consent of the whole church, decided to choose men from among their members to send them to Antioch with Paul and Barnabas. It continues to say they sent off and went down to Antioch. When they gathered the congregation together, they delivered this letter. When its members read it, they rejoiced at the exhortation. Judas and Silas, who were themselves prophets, said much to encourage and strengthen the believers. After they had been there for some time, they were sent off in peace by the believers to those who had sent them. In other words, there was a disagreement, there was debate and conversation, there was discernment, and then a decision was made to compromise. And everybody left satisfied and happy. The second part of Acts 15 shares another story, another disagreement. And I'll read that to you. This is from Acts 15, verses 36 through 40. After some days, Paul said to Barnabas, come, let us return and visit and visit the believers in every city where we proclaim the word of the Lord and see how they are doing. Barnabas wanted to take with them John Mark, but Paul decided not to take with them one who had deserted them in Pamphylia and had not accompanied them in the work. The disagreement became so sharp that they parted company. Barnabas took Mark with him and sailed away to Cyprus. But Paul chose Silas and set out, the believers commending him to the grace of the Lord. In other words, Paul and Barnabas, who had been traveling together, got in an argument on whether to take John Mark with them or not. John Mark had gone with them for a while and then left them to go back home. Paul was upset by this, Barnabas not as much. And Paul and Barnabas got in an argument. They did not come to a compromise. They went their separate ways, and both were able to continue their work for God's kingdom in their own way separately. I share this for you to take a look at Acts 15. You have two examples of a time when people in the church, all of them God-fearing, loving Jesus, believing in Scripture, all of them good, well-intentioned Christians, in one case, got in an argument, came to a compromise, could move forward together. In the next case, got in an argument, decided to split over it, and continued their separate ways. What I want you to pay very close attention to is not whether who was right or who was wrong, but how did they act when they disagreed? They acted like Christians. And sometimes it led to them compromising and continuing together. Sometimes it led to a split, but they still treated one another like Christians, and they practiced their faith through the argument, the debate, and the disagreement, and the dissension. John Wesley put it this way: though we cannot think alike, may we not love alike. And so as we prepare for this vote that we're having, I want to thank you. This process so far has been amazingly peaceful. We have not always agreed. We have had to share in some hard conversations and discernment. But I want you to know that over the past couple of years, I have visited every Sunday school class and had at least 2 or 3 conversations with them about what was coming up. Our church council this past January, had a conversation about this and agreed to put together a subcommittee to create a process moving forward. That subcommittee met weekly for several months. Every decision made by the subcommittee was unanimous, consensus, in agreement. And then when they brought back their report and their plan to the church council, it was passed unanimous consent. And that happened at our church council meeting in June. Since the June church council meeting, we have had 5 church-wide information events where information was presented, there were questions, there were concerns, and then that was followed by church council in August, which heard a report from everything. And I can tell you, at no point at any of these conversations with the church, with the Sunday school classes, with the church council meetings, with the subcommittee meetings, not one person yelled. Not one person accused anyone of not being faithful. Nobody pointed fingers. Certainly nobody used any inappropriate words. I didn't even hear any angry words. And during this entire time, Strawbridge has not delayed or stopped or put aside anything. We have continued with our programs. We have continued with our ministries. We've certainly continued with worship and Sunday school. We've continued with all of our age level ministries, our discipleship, our apostleship, stuff that we do inside the walls, outside the walls. Nothing has been impacted, altered, or slowed down on account of this process. We have not stopped being the church because of this process. In fact, if anything, we have done amazing work in witnessing to the world that communities can have hard conversations and still be Christian. All this time, we have continued all the ordinary and extraordinary things that we do here at Strawbridge. And I would say that our process coming to this vote has been part of our ministry inside and outside the walls, not only by learning to work through a difficult conversation with each other, but like I said, showing the rest of the world it can be done and how to do it. And so from the bottom of my heart, as sincerely as I can say it, I want to thank you, church, for being the church, for being Christian through this whole process. From my experience and my observation, you have exhibited the love, respect, and grace to one another that one would expect from a body of believers. You have been the church Christ intended his followers to be through this process. You have been the church, in my opinion, that Paul is asking the Corinthians to do in his 13th chapter in his first letter to them. In the midst of what I know has been a contentious year, a difficult year, with a lot of deep feelings and strong opinions, you have shown patience and kindness. You have not been resentful, arrogant, boastful, or rude. Thank you. On our vote on the 18th, it will impact our church in some ways, though in some ways nothing will change. We will remain a church compelled by the love of Christ to make a difference in the world of need, regardless of the vote on the 18th, how it goes. We will continue to strive not to be the best church in the community, but the best church for the community. And we will still regard all persons as having sacred worth and welcoming anyone and everyone to worship, to serve, to grow, and to love God along with us. No one will be asked to leave based on how you voted or what you believe about how others voted. In fact, several of you have already shared with me that regardless of the outcome of the vote, you will remain a faithful, active part of Strawbridge. Thank you. However, others have chosen to leave already, and others of you are still waiting to see what happens on the 18th in order to decide how involved or not you will be with Strawbridge, and that's okay. On the 18th, a welcome statement will do one of two things. We'll choose a welcome statement that will either fully affirm the LGBTQ plus community and their relationships, or we will vote to be a church that will affirm the current United Methodist Church stance that welcomes all, but sees the practice of homosexuality as incompatible with Christian teaching. Either one of those statements will take us down a particular path which will cause some of you to remain and some of you to leave. Please know that regardless of what does or doesn't happen on the 18th, I am proud of you all, and I wish you peace and blessings. We may not all be in agreement with what decision we come to, but so far we have all been in agreement on how to come to it, and that's like Christians. On September 18th, just as a reminder, you must be a member and you must be present to vote. Below this video are links to Acts chapter 15, videos of both of the sessions that we had at our church-wide information event, a sample of the ballot and resolutions that we'll be voting on, and some frequently asked questions about the vote and the process. Again, if you do want to be eligible to vote on the 18th, you must join our church by this Sunday, the 11th. Thank you. In every sense of the meaning of the phrase, thank you. I am grateful to you, and I look forward to seeing you this Sunday. May God bless you.